already registered or who do not able to join today. This is a immense pleasure that Professor Debanjan Banerjee is with us for today's webinar with the Web Dialogue, and it's a platform that's called Web Platform for Dialogue. It's a forum to discuss so many multidimensional interdisciplinary studies all together. And from the expert opinion, we can able to understand the current scenario related with COVID-19 and how we can overcome the crisis, and we can sync up our life afterwards COVID-19, because as we all know that it's now part of our life and we have to move on with this journey. So for today's discussion, I really welcome Professor Debanjan Banerjee. He is a introducee of NSHM Knowledge Campus of Communication, and Dr. Debanjan Banerjee is going to speak about fake news in the era of COVID-19 and how it is impacted in our social media. So I'm going to start the presentation and I'm going to open the session only for Professor Debanjan Banerjee. We will have a question answer with him, but it will be at the end of the session. So who would really ask something, I request to raise your question in the chat box. If we will have some time, we will definitely give you the opportunity to speak directly with Professor Debanjan Banerjee, or else I will ask on behalf of you. Thank you so much, Professor Debanjan Banerjee. I welcome you, and you can start your session. And whenever you need my assistance, I am here to help you with the PowerPoint presentation. So we can't able to hear you. Please unmute yourself. No, sir. Unmute yourself first. He's having some problem with the audio, so he will join soon. Meanwhile, I'm just presenting the PowerPoint presentation.
Can you hear me right now?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. This is Professor Debanjan Banerjee from Kolkata. Myself is the head of the Department of Media Science, NSHM Knowledge Campus, Kolkata, India, as well as myself is the head examiner of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad University of Technology, West Bengal, India. Myself is an author, speaker, and media educator, teaching for the last 15 years. Previously, I worked for Times of India and IndiaTimes.com for 7 years. So I have an extensive experience in teaching and industry, both media, you can say. So today I'm here to discuss with you, my dear friends and my students, about a very interesting and a very crucial and critical topic at this point of time: fake news during this COVID era on social media. It's a very, very interesting news at this point of time. Hope in between you are all well. You are all confined at the home, but I can't say that you will be able to confine more time because government has already unlocked. The unlock phase has already started. So we are able to keep ourselves at our home. So we are going to our office. We are going to our professional places, barring schools and colleges and the universities. Everything is open. So before I start at this point of time, what exactly we did for the last 2.5 months since March 25th, 2020, when the Honorable Prime Minister declared the lockdown. In between, 2.5 months elapsed and we all confined at our home. During this confinement, what we did, we basically consume a huge amount of news. By using different media platforms, it can be newspapers, it can be television channels, it can be other news platforms. Especially at this point of time, everybody has got a smartphone. Everybody possesses a smartphone. By using this smartphone, we are consuming news. We had consumed a huge amount of news. Now, before this, going to the nitty-gritty of my topic, let us discuss that basically there are three types of news consumption. Somebody says, first is called the low media consumption. Low media consumption means when a person is consuming media for 0 to 5 to 6 hours maximum, 0 to 6 hours I can say. The moderate consumers are basically, they consume media from 6 to 10 hours, and the heavy consumers do consume media for more than 10 hours. So at the end, we all became heavy media consumers. We used our smartphones, we stick to different social media sites, and huge number of news has been shared on these social media sites. We consumed all this news. Some news are from authentic sources, some news are not from authentic sources. Whatever it is, we did consume this news. Not only consumption, what we did, apart from consumption, we started sharing this news to different peoples. You must be knowing that we are blessed with WhatsApp, we are blessed with different social media chat servers like Snapchat, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger. What do we do whenever we get a news, without analyzing the news, without authenticated source, without reading the news totally about its authenticity, its source, who is written the news, what we are doing, before reading the news, we start sharing the news. This is one of the biggest ever challenge and risky thing once you are dealing with a very serious news. And this COVID-19 and pertaining to this COVID-19 news, all the news are extremely important. Like when the virus outbroke in a small town in Wuhan in China, from a institute which is called the Institute of Virology at Wuhan. First of all, the blame game started. Some countries are accusing China that they did not take this matter seriously, and the leakage took place. And despite so many reminders, they did not take the proper preventive measure. According to WHO and according to other nations, they accused China that China was reluctant about the transmission of this virus, and later on that virus proliferated not only in China, it started proliferating throughout the world and completely ransacked the human lives. Not only human lives, it has completely jeopardized the whole world economy also. Today, 10th of June, the death toll worldwide is more than 77 lakhs. Affected people is more than 77 lakhs, and the death toll is almost crossing 4 lakh 12,000. Even in India also today itself, the total number of affected people is crossing almost more than 2 lakh 70,000, and the people, those who have deceased, the toll is almost 7,600. So you can understand this pandemic has ransacked the human lives, ransacked the world economy. Now the question is, starting from its epicenter, who is responsible, how it happened. In news it is called 5 Ws and 1 H. When, why, where, how, and what exactly happened. So this 5 Ws and 1 H, that means people are more curious about this pandemic, and huge number of news is coming on different social media platforms. The credible sources like leading newspapers, the digital versions are sharing news. Like take for example, for our case, it is Times of India, it is India Today, it is Indian Express, it is NDTV, it is CNN.com, it is Aaj Tak, Z News. They are sharing many information, taking sources from the reporters, taking information from different leading agencies like PTI, Reuters, AP, AFP, Earthas, everyone. Not only these Indian sites or the Indian newspapers or the channels, even the global renowned channels like CNN, BBC, they also started sharing news about the pandemic. What exactly happened? Who are responsible? What can be the remedies of this pandemic? What vaccines are coming up? Which country is working on the vaccines? What are the death tolls? How this pandemic can be mitigated? What is the effect of this lockdown? What can be the economic impact of this COVID-19? How we will be able to cope up with this pandemic? When we will be able to join in our schools and colleges? What kind of preventive measures we can have? So you can understand there are huge number of queries, or inquisitiveness is coming out of our mind, that what is going to happen. By catering all this, all the news organizations, the channels, the social media sites, and the leading digital platforms are disseminating news to us. Definitely these news are important, but before consuming this news, we need to understand which news is important, which news is relevant, which news is pertinent, which news does have a credible source and which news is not exactly an original news. Nowadays, there's a biggest of a challenge for us that we need to differentiate what exactly the water and what exactly the milk is. But the problem is in social media nowadays there are lots of fake websites are coming up. You can book a domain, you can come up with the content does not have an authentic source. Anybody can upload a story, upload a video and disseminate the story on social media sites, and if you don't cross check it and if you start spreading this news without cross checking, this can be extremely fatal and dangerous because news is very important and sensitive. Like if a wrong news is consumed, if a fake news is consumed, if a fake news is spreaded without knowledge or with some willfulness, it can be extremely detrimental for the society. Take for example, if there is a fake story comes that X drug can eradicate or mitigate this pandemic. Now, if without cross-checking it, without cross-checking from the ICMR sources, without cross-checking from WHO or the credible health organizations, if I start disseminating the news through WhatsApp to hundreds and thousands of my friends, acquaintances, relatives, and students, and if they start using these medicines, this can be fatal. So you can understand any news, any news pertaining to this pandemic is a very sensitive news. So before spreading this news, we need to check. That's why the media is called the watchdog. The watchdog means the dog has to be very alert. The dog has to be very alert in that way by which he has to cross check. He has to cross check 10 times before spreading this. Otherwise, this can be extremely detrimental. So before going to the intricacy of the fake news, we need to understand what exactly a fake news is. I would like to request Dr. Chakraborty to show the slides the definition of fake news. So what exactly fake news is? Dr. Chakraborty, please go ahead. So fake news, you can understand, also known as junk news or pseudo news, is a type of yellow journalism or propaganda that consists of intentional disinformation or hoaxes spread via traditional news media, print and broadcast, or online social media. The fake information is often caused by reporters, paying sources for stories, an unethical practice called checkbook journalism. Digital news has brought back and increased the usage of fake news or yellow journalism. The news is then often reverberated as misinformation in social media, but occasionally finds its way to the mainstream media as well. Fake news, I'm giving another very interesting definition and a very important definition of fake news. Fake news is a neologism often used to refer to made up news. This type of news found in traditional news, social media, or fake news websites has no basis in fact but is presented as being factually accurate. So you can understand it is absolutely a calculative ploy by someone by paying some sources and creating some fake news to serve the vested interest of power corridor or anyone. So try to understand fake news, also known as a junk news or pseudo news, is a type of yellow journalism or propaganda that consists of intentional disinformation or hoaxes spread via traditional news media, print and broadcast, or online social media. Previously, it was spreaded through print and broadcast. For print and broadcast, the advantage is, like, take for example Telegraph. If a fake news is printed on Telegraph, maybe 10 lakhs people can read Telegraph. Its circulation is not more than 10 lakh. It is only confined within India. But if the same fake news is uploaded on the digital version of the Telegraph, it will be able to read by 1 million people across the globe. So you can understand the consequences can be extremely fatal. Take for example, for a television channel, if Z News is uploading a fake news or a fake content, it can be viewed by maybe say 5 crore people within the country, or maybe somebody of our neighboring states or the neighboring South countries. But if the Z website is uploading the same content, the same fake content on their digital platform, it can be viewed by millions of people across the globe in 3 time zone: IST, PST, and GMT. You can understand. That's why I'm emphasizing print and fake news, extremely detrimental, no doubt. Television, and fake news on television, extremely detrimental. But if a fake news is omnipresent for 5 minutes, only 5 minutes on any social media site or any digital platform, it can be extremely fatal. So try to understand. This is high time we need to understand what exactly a fake news is. Basically, nowadays we are all becoming media consumers. We know everything. News stands for new, effective, worthy, and speed, which is coming from north, east, west, and south. News has become part and parcel of our life. Without news, we cannot survive, especially at this critical juncture. But before consuming news, we need to have some media literacy, that news is and what is the wrong news, and what news is going to be authentic and which news is going to be not authentic. And before going to this, we need to understand the credible source of the news. Now I'm requesting Dr. Chakraborty to show me the next slide, the different types of fake news. Before going to this, we need to understand there are 7 types of fake news. It's very interesting, and you need to understand this is basically the media literacy one has to have before media consumption, before the consumption of news. Cleared wordlay of first draft news identifies 7 types of fake news. This lady has identified in her first draft news 7 types of fake news. Number 1 is satire or parody. I repeat, number 1 is satire or parody. No intention to cause harm but has potential to fool. So first is satire or parody. In satire and parody, there is no intention to cause harm but has potential to fool. So there are some fake news out there which is basically a satire or parody. The main intention is not to cause any harm, but it can definitely fool. You'll be often getting some news that some false information about X is marrying Y. Maybe a celebrity X is leaving her husband and going to tie up with another gentleman. So this can definitely is not going to harm in that way. In that it is basically entertainment and a soft news told in a very soft manner, but definitely it can fool someone. Second is false connection, when headlines, visuals, or captions don't support the content. You often find some stories when you will be finding the headline is one, but the content, visuals, and the captions is not going with the headline. Like headline is talking about, take for example, an international tie-up between China and India. The content is saying that there is a disharmony between India and China, and they're on the brink of a war. So try to understand the headline does not support with the content and visual. This is the second type of fake news. Third is called the misleading content. Misleading content is nothing but it is a misleading use of information to frame an issue or an individual. That means I am creating or someone is creating a misleading use of information to frame an issue or an individual. So I am targeting an issue or an individual and posting a fake content or a fake video by which my intention is to mislead that individual or a society or an issue or a group. This is another kind of a very, very malefic fake news. The point number 4, that means the fourth types of the fourth number of fake news. The fourth is the false context, when genuine content is shared with false contextual information. It is also very harmful. It is called the false context, when genuine content is shared with false contextual information. This is another kind of fake news. Number 5 is imposter content. Imposter content is nothing but when genuine sources are impersonated with false made up stories. When the genuine sources are impersonated with false and made up stories. Number 6 is manipulated content, when genuine information or imagery is manipulated to deceive, as with a doctored photo. It is a very, very omnipresent format of fake news which is nowadays very much prevalent on social media sites, when you'll be finding the doctored photo. I can give you many examples. The recent example I'm giving in West Bengal, in Howrah. When the pandemic is going on, there was a huge lockdown and government imposed a lockdown, and there was a curfew has been imposed on the Howrah district of West Bengal. All of a sudden, some people registered on this curfew, and there is a there's a huge amount of violence took place between the police and the normal public. So that led to some injury of the police people and some injury of the common masses also. What exactly the next day, it was found in many of the social media sites, there are some doctored photos. That photo was not the photo of Howrah. Some other parts of the country, even not only the India's photo, some other countries violent photographs has been doctored and put up and showed that this is the photograph of Howrah. So this can be extremely dangerous and fatal when you are dealing with some communal things, when you are dealing with some sensitive religious things, when you are dealing with some national things. It can lead to some blasphemy, which is a religious infliction. It can be a seditious activities when you are harming the country. That means by putting this doctored video, what exactly you're doing, you are jeopardizing the national security and sovereignty in that way. So try to understand this doctored type photo, a doctored video, or doctored photographs can be extremely fatal for an individual, society, a country. So this type of fake news are often omnipresent. So this is another very harmful type of fake news. And the number 7 is the fabricated content. The number 7 is the fabricated content. New content is 100% false, designed to deceive and do harm. So this is the 7th one, extremely injurious, fabricated content. New content is 100% false. That means content is 100% false. It is designed to deceive and do harm. That means there is no accuracy, there is no truthfulness of the content. The content has been completely changed. They created intentionally a wrong content, a false content. It has been designed just to deceive and to harm. So I repeat, these are the very important 7 types of fake news according to a clear wordplay, satire or parody. Number 2, false connection. Number 3, misleading content. Number 4, false context. Number 5, imposter content. Number 6, manipulated content. Number 7 is fabricated content. So I would like to request Dr. Chakraborty to show me the next slide. Now, the next challenge for us, I'm talking about media literacy. Nowadays, we have to become a media literate because we all are becoming heavy media consumer. From the beginning of the session, I told you nowadays we are almost all heavy media consumer, courtesy our smartphones. Because of our smartphones, nowadays we are stick to social media almost 10 to 15 hours. Even during our when you go to sleep, even the cell phone is with us and the cell phone is online. So you can understand, we wake up with media, we take our breakfast with media, we take our lunch with media, we sleep with media, and we dream with media. So try to understand, here media means in maximum cases the smartphones and social media. So before you consume news, you disseminate news, you read a news, you have to become little bit of media literate. That means you need to understand what exactly a false information is and what exactly a correct information is. What exactly is a true news, what exactly is a right news, authentic news, and what exactly is a false or a fake news. So there are many important points in that way. So there are hundreds and thousands of points of there, but I jotted down into a small number of points. So let me describe this. Number one, consider the source. To understand the credible source. Who is the source? If you find the source is not authentic, you should not trust that news. That means the first important criteria to understand or to identify fake news is to understand the source. Number 2, read beyond the headline to understand the whole story. You'll often find there's a huge ambiguity between the headline and the content. So read beyond the headline. Not only the headline, sometimes the headline may mislead you. You need to go to the details of the news, and you might find that there's a big discrepancy between the headline and the content. So it has to have a similarity between the headline and the content. So you need to understand, you need to go beyond the headline to to understand the whole story. Number three, that number third parameter of checking this or identifying the fake news is check the authors to see if they're real and credible. If you find some X is writing a story about international relations, about who, and that X is not a recognized journalist, that X is not a very authentic person, so you should not trust that story also. So check the authors to see if they're real and credible. Number four is assess the supporting sources to ensure they support the claims. You'll be finding a story has been written. X is writing the story. He is writing the story, and while going the story, it is a very old practice of the reporters that the reporters never say by themselves what exactly they do. They basically quote. Take for example, if I'm a journalist, once I was working for a newspaper, and if somebody is going to become a journalist, he has to write a story, but what he or she should do, he or she can give, that means maybe he's taking the press conference of Prime Minister Narendra Modi or a Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. What exactly Modi is saying, what Mamata Banerjee is saying, they can quote that according to Mamata Banerjee, quote unquote, according to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, quote unquote. So try to understand. So assess the supporting sources. Like the story has to have some sources and some quotes given by someone. We need to check and clarify those supporting sources. The next parameter is check the data publication to see if the story is relevant and up to date. Nowadays, because of different controversy, economic controversy, political controversy, there are many controversies that are going on. And you can understand, you should understand that good news is not news. If there is a conflict, if there is a controversy, if there is a dispute, then there is a news. Take for example, China versus India, dispute, it's a news. Kashmir, India versus Pakistan, dispute, it's a news. East Bengal, Mohun Bagan, dispute, controversy between two football clubs of India. They have a rivalry, it's a news. Messi versus Ronaldo, there's a comparison, it's a news. Amir Khan versus Shah Rukh Khan, there is a dispute that who is number one, it's a news. So try to understand, good news is not news. News should be always controversial. Then and only then it can be a very good news. So I should not say good news is not a news. Sometimes good news is also news, but good news seldom give you much more attraction towards the news. But if you find that a dog bites a man, is it a news? But if a man bites a dog, it's a big news. But if the dog belongs to Sonia Gandhi, it's absolutely hypothetical. If the dog belongs to Sonia Gandhi and it bites Narendra Modi, this will become a news. So try to understand, a man bites a dog is definitely a news, but a dog bites a man cannot be a news, provided the dog belongs to a celebrity and it bites another celebrity and both the celebrities are rivals. So this is very interesting. That means first you will be finding sometimes somebody is annoyed with some political party. He is extracting some old news about a political party and share that news on social media. If you check the news, you'll be finding that the news took place in the year 2017 and which has been posted right now just to tamper the image of one political party, but the incident took place 3 years back. So try to understand, you need to check the data publication to see if the story is relevant and up to date. Next point is ask if it is a joke to determine it is meant to be satire. Sometimes we'll be finding some satire is there. So some satire, if the satire is not exactly that much of harmful, then it's okay. But in some cases, you'll be finding some satire is going to become detrimental. I'm giving an example, the hoax. The hoax means you'll be finding often there's a news that a celebrity is no more. It is absolutely a fake news. Within 10 minutes, you'll be finding on social media, there are 10,000 updates, there are 15,000 likes, and there are 20,000 comments that that person is no more. He just passes away. I can give an example of right now. You must be knowing the famous Indian actor Victor Banerjee. Almost 5 to 6 times the news came on social media that Victor Banerjee is no more. And one point of time, his daughter had to conduct a press conference and told the public on the press conference that my dad is alive. He is fit and fine. So you can understand the intention of that particular person. That person first created this fake news and spreaded that fake news just to do some some sort of enjoyment, I can say, some enjoyment or some sadistic things just to kill a famous actor without knowing the sources. So bad, so unfortunate, but it happens. So I request all of you, you need to check all this. The last point, review your own biases to see if they are affecting your judgment. Being a news reporter and a news consumer, take for example, you are a news consumer. That means you are a reader, you are a viewer, you are a listener of news. You are very much stick to newspaper. You are fond of news. You read every day 2 newspapers. You watch 4 television news channels. You are very much aware about the social media updates. You also involve yourself updating different news and views. You give comments to different controversial issues. But one has to remove his biases. Biases means being a news person and being a news consumer also. You have to consume the news in a very neutral manner. You should not have any political affinity while consuming the news, because if you have a political affinity, that means you are unable to digest the proper news. You will have a bias on this. From the news reporter's point of view and the consumer's point of view, you need to remove the biases. So these are the important points by which you'll be able to identify which is a fake news. I do request Dr. Chakraborty to show the next slide. Now the next one, another very important thing, how to detect fake news online. This is the biggest ever challenge for all of us nowadays, because nowadays the fake news itself become a pandemic. Like COVID-19 is a pandemic, nowadays fake news itself become a pandemic. So it is high time for us to understand, to identify the fake news and how to detect the fake news online. I'm just giving some important points through these slides. First is consider the source. I told you many a times, your source should be authentic. You have to clarify 10 times, maybe 100 times, that 10 times or 100 times about the authenticity of the source. The next one is
Orpita, not to share the screen, so it will hamper the session. Sir, unmute yourself. Sir, we can't able to hear you. So, yes.
now, hello? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So the next point is, hello?
Orpita, I request not to present yourself. Not to present yourself, Orpita. I will remove you.
Okay. So the next point is first is you need to understand, consider the source. The next is read beyond. Read beyond means, for example, one story, you find the story is little controversial, a little tricky, with some disputes. So you need to authenticate this news with some other credible news channels of the digital platform. Take for example, you get a news on bbc.co.in. You find the story is little controversial and something out of the box. Before consuming this story or before sharing this story to your friends or acquaintances or students, you need to check the same news from other credible source. You need to check it from CNN.com. Maybe you need to check it from an Indian site. It can be India Today, it can be Times of India. So try to understand, in case of any doubt, in case of any issues, in case of any inquisitiveness that you find the story is going to become a little controversial, and it may not happen like this. So it is your responsibility to cross-check from other credible sites, and if you find both sides are saying the same story, then and only then you can consume that story. You can spread the story among your friends. Third is check the author. It is very important. Like the source is important, so is the author, because the author should be very credible. If the author is not credible, sometimes you find the new journalist is coming up with a very controversial story. No harm, no problem. But in that case, you need to authenticate the journalist is really belonging to that particular channel, a particular site, whether that particular site is a fake site, has been doctored, the photographs has been completely copied from BBC and making another false BBC site. So it can happen at this point of time in this cyber era when the crimes are taking place. Lots of cyber crimes are taking place. Some doctors' websites are created just to create a fraudulent activities on social media and on virtual platforms. So you need to understand and you need to check the author also. Next is supporting sources. Sometimes you'll be finding one source, one reporter is writing a story, but he is quoting someone. He's quoting some other sources. You need to cross-check that supporting sources. Next is check the date. I again repeat you, check the date means sometimes you often get the old story. The old story, if it's an old story, has been posted by someone for some intention. In that case, you need to clarify that if it's an old story, you have to cross-check the old story, and in that case, if the story is really old, then it's okay. Next comes the next part is it a joke? If it is a joke, if it is absolutely a joke, if it is not exactly harmful, then no issue. But if this joke is going to become detrimental for someone, then you need to cross-check it, and you should not consume that news, and you should not disseminate the news to your friends. Next is check your biases. Check your biases means once you are consuming news, you have to understand that particular newspaper digital platform is completely biased. That particular digital platform is a spokesperson of a political party or a group or an organization. If you find in that way some evident information are with you, and if you are with full of evidences, in that case you need to cross check with other sites just to eradicate the bias. Because if you share some X channel or X websites, and if that X website is fond of political color green, and it is only advocating green and criticizing orange, in that case you need to check it from the orange side that what exactly the truth is. So try to understand, check your biases is very important. And the last one is ask the experts. After everything is over, still if you have a doubt, still if you are really apprehensive that this can be extremely detrimental if I share this is a very controversial news, this is a disputed news, this is dealing with a very controversial issue. The issue can be in international politics, it can be a topic about a pandemic, it can be a topic about uh, any other natural calamities, the death toll, the drugs, the vaccine, whatever it is, that means which is very sensitive news. You need to cross check from the experts. If you know some experts, that sir or madam, what exactly the correct information is. I have seen all this kind of newses, and now I'm really confused that whether this is correct or this is correct, whether this is wrong or whether this is right. You need to ask from the experts. So try to understand that at this point of time during this COVID era, we are consuming news in a very stupendous proportion, in a very huge amount of news we are consuming every day by using our social media, different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinster. There are many sites out there. So while doing this, we are consuming news. Not only consuming, we are reading this news, we are coming up with an opinion, and what we are doing, we are disseminating the same news through WhatsApp to our friends. We are tagging our friends, we are uploading the story, even giving comment on that without knowing the authenticity of the story, what exactly we have uploaded. So this is high time for us to understand what exactly fake news is, how to identify this fake news, how to detect this fake news. Then and only then we should consume news, we should consume news, views, or we should disseminate information. So I would request Dr. Chakraborty, now the session is open for the students or the participants. If some professors are there, they can ask questions to me.
Well, it's a very informative and full of live session. I would say it's a very live examples you have already presented. So
Thank you.
personally, I really thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. It's wonderful. It's mind-blowing, actually. I personally came to know
Thank you,
so
ma'am.
many
Thank you.
facts about, because because as an academician, as a researcher, I think it's a high time to act and to know something from a very expert like you. So we have some question in the chat box. I'm trying to read them out for you, and you can please answer one by one. Uh, yeah. So Mayuk Chakraborty would like to ask that, sir, how can we stop spreading fake news?
So Moyuk, I think first thing you have to become a media literate. So how to enhance your literacy rate? I gave you the examples. Like first of all, you need to cross check the fact. You need to authenticate the source. If you find some news seems to be a little controversial, you need to check it from other sites, maybe two or three sites. Take for example, there is a clash between India and China in Ladakh. There is a news. So I'm just giving an example. If there's a news that Chinese army started firing towards the Indian army in Ladakh, in the Ladakh border, and 5 Indian army killed. What do you have to do? First of all, you need to check it from other sites. Take, for example, you get the news from India Today. You need to check it from Times of India. You need to check it from BBC. You need to check from other agencies. It can be PTI, it can be AFP, it can be Reuters. And if you find the same story is coming because of the Chinese firing, 5 Indian Jawans have been killed, or it can be vice versa, like the Indian army killed 5 intruders, 5 Chinese intruders. They wanted to intrude in Ladakh. So the first of all, you need to check, cross check. You need to understand the source. You need to authenticate the source. You need to cross check 2 to 3 times by opening other websites. Then and only then you can consume this news. That means it is you. It is up to you. Once you get a news, you should not be very much emotional, uh, very much sensitive, hyperactive, and uploading the news immediately. No, just read the news carefully. Just check between the headline and the content. If you find there is an ambiguity, then it's a false. If you find some photographs, you need to cross-check the photograph. There are lots of your Google Uncle is there, Alta Vista is there, Bing is there. There are lots of search engines are there. You can search about the photographs also. You might get that photograph has been taken by AFP. That means it is credible. So this is the only way you can understand that this is a fake news. Next question, please.
Next question is from Mayuk itself. Can't we make a filter of fake news like the baby mode of a cell phone and ad block in news media? That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes, this is a very interesting interesting observation. You can do this. You can do this, but in some cases, your understanding is very important. Technology can definitely help you, but what exactly your perception about the news is very important. Take for example, if you find a news written as in an Indian website that disputed Kashmir, right? And one news agency from Reuters, it has been written that Kashmir is an integral part of Pakistan and Kashmir is not belonging to India. Try to understand, Kashmir itself is a land with full of controversies are there. So being an Indian side, we cannot say disputed Kashmir. We should say that Kashmir is a part of India. So that means that particular Indian side is giving some false news. So you have to have some news idea also. Technology can definitely filter the news. Technology can segregate the right news and false news in terms of technological aspect, but not in the realistic aspect until and unless you have to have the knowledge of news. I am giving you an example. Once I was a content editor of IndiaTimes.com. We used to we had to use a software called doctors.html. I repeat, doctors.html, and one was called netmechanic.com, because huge number of news used to come. So it is very difficult for us to manually check always. So what we used to do, we have to put this in our second server, like www.indiatimes.com/the story/narendramodi.html. Just an example. Now I need to put this URL in this programming sector, like this doctors.html. Then I submit, and I'll be getting all the wrong spellings, all the wrong syntax are coming up. What are the wrongs are there? If there is a problem in the hyperlink also, they detect us that this much of wrong spellings are there, this much of syntax problem of this, there are some problems of preposition, there's a problems of verbs, but these are all automated. Take for example, if the detector's honor has been red marked as a wrong spelling, HONOUR, COLOUR, but the American software denotes that this is wrong, but it is HONOR. So this kind of some nuisance you have to have. Definitely what exactly you have suggested, it's good, but until unless you have a new sense, technology can take you to some point, but will be unable to completely eradicate. It will be able to mitigate the problem. Next question.
Right, son. It's not a question. It's Dr. Anirudh Burman. It's a observation from your presentation that it is all depends on the one's mindset, which news to accept or not. That you correctly said, sir. That which one we need to accept or not. That's upon us.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely,
the next
absolutely.
question is from Shaurav Kumar Basu, sir.
Yes.
There are two questions from. Please say a bit about the fact-checking protocol for the audio, images, and also for the videos too, which are getting viral all over the social media nowadays. Yeah.
See, Mr. Basu, it's a very good question. This is the biggest ever challenge. Content is okay. Content we seldom read. If you find there's a sea of text of say 1,000 words are written on a social media sites about any controversy, about a pandemic, about the death toll, about the lockdown, its success, its a failure. So there's a huge text or a clash between two communities, right? But if it is an audio clipping and if it is a video, especially I am talking about the video one, which is basically visible and which is often being doctored on social media sites, and it is going to become extremely fatal for, and it can be fatal for an individual, for a society, for a nation also. So under this prevailing circumstances, there are some, under Information Technology Act 2000, under the Cyber Act, there is a provision, but the problem is even today itself, 10th June 2020, there is as such no proactive tool to prevent this. There are some tools and regulations and laws for the reactions. Take for example, if you are able to detect that this is a false news has been uploaded by X from a particular IP address, that person can be detected, that person can be put behind the bar, a fine can be charged, he can be jailed for 5 years, up to 5 years, up to 5 years. But the problem is proactiveness. There should be some law, some special tools by which we can prevent before the incident took place. But as such, at this point of time, some softwares are introduced, but these softwares are mere softwares. These are unable to check. The problem is, it is the responsibility of the government while booking the domain. Take for example, Mr. Basu, you are booking a domain. So once you are booking a domain, you can book a domain and you need to pay some money. If you pay a huge amount, you'll be getting a more space by which you can able to upload more audios and the video files as per your requirement. Now, this should be the first checkbox. Who is booking the domain? Number one, what purpose is booking the domain, right? If the domain is booked, what are the content is uploading? There should be a regulatory authority. They have to first give a trial run of that website. They have to monitor that particular gentleman's site, what news content he's uploading. There should be a monitoring cell. They should monitor the content for at least for 15 days or at least for 1 month for a trial, and which is basically happened for television channels, but that is mostly for the technical reasons. But for the digital platform, not only the technical part, the content, the audio and video has to be monitored by that cell. And after 1 month trial, if they find the content is authentic, then and only then this particular website should be given permission to upload content for the netizens. So this can be the only way to mitigate this problem.
That's wonderful that I came to know first time for that one of a good protocol that we can actually follow, because it's apart from your presentation, I just want to share that why I selected this particular web platform for dialogue webinar series. I'm planning to launch a website, and all of your presentation with the content related with COVID-19 as well as afterwards, how we can actually promote peace and dialogue sessions with the how to mitigate the conflict. That is the main motto of the website
Very
that
good,
I'm
very good.
coming
Please,
soon.
please,
Will
please
be.
go ahead. Please go ahead.
So with the monitoring, that's a very makes sense that, how to evaluate and monitor the particular website from the government. That is very important, because that's not happening actually. And that is the reason, fake content, fake news have been coming around. So with this, from Dr. Basu, there another question that, and what would be the right terminology for fake content? Because how the news could be mentioned as fake. So is that fake content or fake news?
So content is basically news. For example, the content is basically news. What exactly you are sending as a journalist is the content. That content has been termed as a news because if you're a journalist. So try to understand another very difficult challenge for us. Like there's a new concept of citizen journalism. Like everybody has become a nowadays journalist. Like if you can come up with your own website, and if something is going on in front of you as a journalist, even nowadays different channels are promoting this citizen journalist concept. That means they are not sending the reporters. Take for example, there is a water logging is taking place in your area. After this Umphan in Kolkata was almost submerged. There's a huge amount of natural calamity, almost more than 5,000 trees uprooted in the proper metropolitan cities. So that's almost a disaster for the city. So what exactly happened at this point of time during that phase? Many channels, the reporters were unable to cover the story. They are coming up with a new concept that you can also become a journalist. You take your smartphone, take photographs of the areas, send the photographs to us in a particular number, WhatsApp number, with a video. It can be still photographs, it can be a video content, and write something about the problem, and you can send it. The problem is, now if it has been handled by an amateur person, first of all, he may be unable to take the right photographs. Maybe whatever content he's practically sharing, maybe he has got some his own bias, right? Maybe he is fond of some X, some Y, some interest. He does have some interest. So try to understand under these prevailing circumstances, it is very difficult to understand, and it is very difficult to determine which is a fake news, because fake news is absolutely the person who is sending, he does have a vested interest. Who is sending a fake news? Definitely the person does have a vested interest, either to ridicule someone, either to criticize unnecessarily to someone, either to create some anarchy within the society. So it is the responsibility of us first, because we are consuming, because it is not at our hand what kind of news somebody will be sending to us, but it is within our hand that we can definitely differentiate the right and differentiate the wrong. We can segregate the right and wrong, and we can consume in that way. So in
Right. So, yeah. And there is another question from, I think, related with this. So, from Aishwarya, how can we recognize the sources of authentications? So, can we actually?
yes, authentication. First of all, Aishwarya, if you get a news from one particular website, take for example, you get a news from print. There's a famous news portal, Print. You get a news from Print. Now if you click the Print page, first is the home page. You need to go to the home page. In the home page, you have to, first of all, if you get a news, if a news has been shared on Facebook about Narendra Modi's lockdown 6 planning, and there is a headline, there's an intro, and there's a link given. If you click the link, the main page will open. That means that particular link will redirect you to the Print main page. So once you get the Print main page, just go to the page. You need to authenticate whether it is Print site, and within the site you will be getting the license number of the Print. That means, like every newspaper has got its RNI number, television channel has got their license. Even for the websites, they have a registered number, which is there in their registration link. If you click that link, you will be getting that Print site is an authenticated site registered by the Ministry of Information and Technology, Government of India. So in that case, you can do this. But the problem is, being a consumer of news, what we do, if we get a source and if it is well presented, without even clicking the inside page, the main page, we just share that news. So authenticity means you have to go to the main page from the link. Therefrom, you need to authenticate from its registration number. In case of newspaper, it is omnipresent on the top page or in the inside pages where the editor's name is written. In case of websites, in the bottom hand, you'll be getting contact and the registration links. If you click there, and you'll be getting a copyright also. Copyright @ print or @ indiatoday.co.in. that it has been registered properly. So this can be one. And so I request everyone, please consume the authentic news websites. That is the only solution at this point of time, because you don't know, there can be hundreds and thousands of sites are coming up which is authentic, but if you are only consuming the leading brand, the authenticate brand, then definitely it is credible. In that case, you can cross check with the foreign agencies, you can cross check with the BBC, you can cross check with CNN, you can cross check with the leading news agencies like Reuters, some AP. If there's a news about for example, any news, like today there's a big news that in India, it's a very good positive news. I can read it now, right now. I can share with you that today, the first 10 June, in the pandemic ratio, recovery rates in India has overtaken the active cases. This is a very good positive news, which I got from my friend. What I did, I go to BBC. I checked BBC. The same thing is coming. Maybe some little difference of number of tolls, but the percentage is remaining same. That 48.9% of Indians are recovering today. And this 48.9% is saying BBC, CNN, Times of India, India Today, Deccan Herald, Deccan Chronicle, Hindu, Indian Express, everybody. That means the news is credible. So I request you, do not consume new websites for any sensitive news. Please stick to the old one. The old proverb laments, old is gold, new is suspicious.
Absolutely wonderful. Even I still remember, if I'm not wrong, I shared information regarding some sensitive issues on Hindu-Muslim riot case, and I think you are the right person to point me out that please check the authentication. And I still remember, and at the same time, I went to the sources of authentication and I checked that actually I did wrong. So at the same time, I opted for deleting my post. And thank you very much. And that point is very, very important. So I personally request all of you who have presented today here, kindly keep contact with Professor Banerjee for any kind of confusion. He is happy to help you in any way. So if you find any confusion, please contact with her. And another question, we have some questions from Shushmita.
Yeah, this will be the last question, because I need to conclude with some last part is remaining, very important part. This will be the last question.
Right. This will be the last question. So how common people identify fake news? It's already been answered, Shushmita. Sritoma Paul would like to say, why doesn't the social medias use any gatekeeping process for filtering? Also been answered, Sritoma. You can check the recording afterwards. Shubhrata would like to say, how to spread awareness against fake news and evaluate the people have been really sensitized not to spread such news. Also been answered with Professor Banerjee. And I think you can sir, because we are running out of time. So
okay, so I conclude. Just before the conclusion, you please keep in mind that fake news has got another 3 very interesting categories. The last 3 categories which you need to understand. First is called the misinformation. First is the misinformation. Number 2 is the disinformation, and number 3 is malinformation. In this 3-way, fake news are dominating on social media. First is misinformation. What exactly misinformation is? When false information disseminated without harmful intent. Misinformation means when false information is spreaded out without harmful intent. Next is disinformation, which is basically created and shared by people with harmful intent. So misinformation does not have a harmful intent. It can fool people. Disinformation has a tendency to harm the people, or there's a harmful intent on that. And the last is the malinformation, which is the sharing of genuine information with the intent to cause harm. So disinformation and malinformation are extremely detrimental, but misinformation can be a joke, can be a satire or parody, but it is also not accepted. So I conclude in this session that being a consumer of news, you are all heavy consumers. I gave you the example that you wake up with media and you sleep with media and you dream media also, and your cell phone is online always. So definitely use cell phone, consume media, consume news, get information, because nowadays this is the 4th instinct of human being, like food, clothing, shelter, and communication. Communication means news. So if you are consuming news, please consume with some sort of media literacy. Go through this meticulously. If you find it's controversial, dispute it, check it from other credible sites, and then and only then disseminate, because it is you can only mitigate, you can only eradicate fake news. Thank you so much.
It's a wonderful session. Personally, I really thank to you for this
Thank you,
full of
madam. Thank you so much.
information, because I think it's not been ended up, because with this first session with you in the episode 11 with web platform for dialogue, we can move on with the media literacy, and how we
Yes.
can actually create media literacy. That is another, I think, second round of discussion with you could be coming up in the month of July. We can conduct another webinar, that how we can actually literate people who are not literate in a true sense of media. So thank you so much, and I'm wrapping up here.
Thank you.
So
Thank you very much.
good evening and good night, all of you. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.